Good King Wenceslas. Once upon a time, in a faraway land called Bohemia, there was a kind and generous king named Wenceslas. He was known all over the land for his big heart and his willingness to help anyone in need. King Wenceslas lived in a grand castle with his loyal knights and wise advisors, but what made him truly special was how he cared for the people in his kingdom, especially during the cold winter months. One snowy Christmas Eve, King Wenceslas was looking out of his castle window. The snow was falling gently, covering the ground like a soft white blanket. The king noticed a poor man gathering sticks in the forest far below. The man looked cold and hungry. Wenceslas's heart went out to him. He called for his loyal page, a young boy who helped him with his daily tasks. "Page, come here," the king said. The page hurried to his side. "Do you see that poor man out there gathering sticks?" the king asked. The page nodded. "He looks so cold and hungry. We must help him. Gather some food and warm clothes and let us go to him." The page quickly gathered bread, meat, and a flask of warm wine. He also brought a thick coat and a pair of warm boots. King Wenceslas put on his own heavy cloak and boots, and together they set out into the snowy night. The snow was deep and the wind was cold. The page began to shiver, but he followed closely in the king's footsteps. The king noticed the page struggling and said, "Follow in my footsteps and you will stay warm." The page did as he was told, stepping where the king stepped. The footprints left by the king seemed to warm the ground, and the page felt much better. As they walked through the snow, the king and the page sang Christmas carols to keep their spirits high. The forest was quiet except for the sound of their voices and the crunching of snow beneath their feet. Finally, they reached the poor man. "Good evening, my friend," King Wenceslas said warmly. The poor man looked up, surprised to see the king and his page standing before him. "We have brought you some food and warm clothes," the king continued. "Please, take them and be well." The poor man was so grateful. He thanked the king and the page over and over. "Thank you, your majesty. Thank you so much. I will never forget your kindness." King Wenceslas smiled and said, "It is Christmas Eve, a time for giving and helping others. Take care, my friend, and have a Merry Christmas." The king and the page turned to make their way back to the castle. As they walked, the snow began to fall even heavier, and the wind picked up, howling through the trees. The page began to feel cold again and struggled to keep up with the king. "Your Majesty," the page said, his voice shaking, "it's so cold, and the snow is so deep. I'm not sure I can make it back." King Wenceslas turned and saw the worry on the page's face. He stopped and put a comforting hand on the boy's shoulder. "Do not worry, my young friend. We will get through this together. Remember to follow in my footsteps." The page nodded, feeling a little braver. He watched as the king took a step forward, leaving a deep footprint in the snow. The page stepped into the footprint, and as he did, he felt a warmth spread through his body. Step by step, they continued their journey back to the castle, with the page following the king's footsteps closely. Along the way, the king told the page stories to keep his mind off the cold. He spoke of past Christmases, of feasts and celebrations, and of the joy of giving to others. The page listened, his heart warming with each story. He realized how much the king cared for his people and how he always put others before himself. As they neared the castle, the snowstorm began to subside. The wind calmed, and the snowflakes fell gently once again. The lights from the castle shone brightly, guiding them back home. When they finally reached the castle gates, they were greeted by the king's knights and servants who had been worried about them. "Welcome back, your majesty! Welcome back, young page!" they cried, rushing to help them inside. The king and the page were given warm blankets and hot drinks to thaw the chill from their bones. The page looked up at King Wenceslas with admiration. "Thank you, your majesty, for helping me stay warm and for teaching me the true meaning of Christmas." King Wenceslas smiled warmly. "It is my pleasure, dear page. Remember, Christmas is about helping others and showing kindness. We must always strive to make the world a better place, especially during the cold and dark times." That night, the king and the page sat by the roaring fire in the grand hall of the castle. The room was filled with the warmth of the fire and the joyful chatter of the people. The king looked around at his people, feeling a deep sense of contentment. "Let us always remember," King Wenceslas said to those gathered around him, that the greatest gift we can give is our kindness and our love. By helping others, we spread the true spirit of Christmas. The people cheered and raised their cups in a toast to the king. The page, now feeling like part of the royal family, beamed with pride. He knew he had learned a valuable lesson that he would carry with him forever. From that day on, King Wenceslas continued to be a beacon of kindness and generosity. Every Christmas Eve, he and the page would venture out into the snowy night to help those in need. The story of their deeds spread far and wide, inspiring others to do the same. And so, the kingdom of Bohemia flourished, with everyone following the example of their good and kind king. The people lived in harmony, always ready to lend a helping hand to their neighbors. The spirit of Christmas lived on in their hearts, not just for one night, but every day of the year. Moral of the story. In this story, we learn the importance of kindness and generosity. King Wenceslas showed us that helping others, especially during difficult times, is a noble and wonderful thing to do. By following his example, we can make the world a better place, one good deed at a time. Let's remember to be kind and to help those in need, just like good King Wenceslas did.